I'm back, and I wasn't going long either. Those of you that are following my book read of the game project of mine, this is what it looks like. It can be purchased on consciouspress.net, and if it's local, I'll deliver it. If it needs to be sent out, I'll get it out that same day, if not possible, the following morning. So far, we've read the introduction and we've read chapter one. And it's been a while since I picked up the book, so I'm interested. I would like to further read chapter two today. And I just want to give you a little brief context on the book because someone might just be chiming in and catching chapter two and don't know anything about us reading chapter one or the introduction, and they'll have no idea about what the book is about. So the book is about a young guy. He's a street hustler, and he realizes what he's doing life isn't about, and he wants out. So he decides to use everything that he knows about the game to get the money quick as he can and to get out. Put himself on top of the game and walk away from it. But in between getting the money and walking away, life happens. Envy, jealousy, lust, love, hatred, violence, and the cheapness of life itself. Even death. Hey, we can't tell you the end before we do some reading. So let's jump right into chapter two and make it happen. As Goldie approached the block, which was about 40 minutes or so away from the hideout, he was flagged down by a young man named Smooth. He pulled the car over and instructed the kid to get in so that he could get off of that particular block. It was the most happening block in the town. But Goldie also knew that Remsen Avenue in New Brunswick was the hottest in regards to investigations and criminal activities. As Goldie turned the car on the handy street off Remsen, Smooth asked, "So what's up for the day?" Now Smooth was one with potential, sharp at wit, and loved to make a dollar. He had been hustling for Goldie for the last 6 months or so. Goldie watched him closely. He seemed to be flawless, at least ready for what he had planned. Goldie replied, "Hey man, today I just want you to hang out with me. I have a few runs to make, and I'll hit your pocket, and I'm gone." "Okay, but Goldie, we ain't gonna do no hustling today, 'cause it's money coming like crazy out there on the block." Goldie glanced over at him and said, "And it's always gonna be out there too, but you won't if you keep focusing on the money. How many times have I told you, work on your game? That's where the money is. It's not what you make, it's what you do with what you make. Now tighten up, 'cause we got some rapping to do." After a short pause of silence, Smooth asked, "Goldie, have you heard about what happened last night?" Goldie reflected on the night before, where he stood at a crap table in Atlantic City, drinking Maker's Mark. He was down about $30,000 when he received the call. The voice politely said on the opposite end of the line, "It's done." Goldie glanced over at Smooth again and replied, "No, I haven't heard what happened last night. You tell me." "Well, from my understanding, Felix's bodyguard and two of his closest associates are dead. It's said that they came out of one of his spots over off Lee Avenue, got into the big BMW, and somehow the car just blew up." Goldie asked, "Are you aware that they were the competition? It's like the Spanish were taking over New Brunswick. What do we have left? The Jersey Avenue Caf, the Elks Club, and the Somewhere Else Bar. They have a guy on just about every hustle block in the city. Soon, if you don't work with them or for them, the brothers won't be able to work." Smooth asked, "Goldie, what do you mean?" "I mean, they don't mind organizing and paying to play. The Hispanic will be able to move brothers off the blocks that they pioneered. First off, because they are buying the blocks based on proceeds from small businesses that stem from drug sales, prostitution, etc. Second off, utilizing the law. They have willing participants, we don't. The brothers on the police force will still be looking at us like we're pieces of shit and splitting our head to the white meat and locking us the fuck up while they build. I can't afford. No, we can't afford to take this shit lying down. Smooth slowly turned his head away and out toward the passing scenery. For Goldie had an intense stare that could kill. Goldie stated, "Nah, look here, man. I'm on to something. Something that I want to do." And you know that Goldie doesn't try to do anything. However, I'm going to need your help. The plan that I have will turn the town. Man, this is your wake-up call. I'm going to make you rich. Smooth replied, "Yeah, Goldie, yeah, I like that. Count me in." As Goldie pushed his caddy through traffic, they rode in silence. He smiled to himself, for he knew the only way to keep his edge was by knowing more about what he did than anyone else. They were approaching Joyce Kilmer and Reed on the other side of town. Goldie pulled the car over to the side of the road and told Smooth to sit tight. He would be back. Smooth sat there watching Goldie as he disappeared into one of the 3 existing apartment buildings, wondering what Goldie's plan was really all about. When Goldie reached the intended apartment, he removed a small ring of keys from his pocket and opened the door, and there she sat on the living room sofa with a pillow on her lap. He called her Chocolate Thunder. She was the prettiest thing you ever wanted to see. Her name was Kathy. She stood about 5'8" tall and about 128 pounds thick. He thought to himself, "Black sure is beautiful." Now, Kathy was a native of New Brunswick, and Goldie had met her while she was in high school. He should have been in some kind of school also. He was already out in the streets trying to make a name for himself and trying to find a way out of what was long considered a sickness. They never hooked up during that period of their lives. However, Goldie would watch her watch him as she would make her way through the hustle block on her way home from school. It wasn't that she didn't want anything to do with him at that point in her life. His mindset was, why would she, as fine as she was, and with all that he was into? It wasn't until about 10 years later that Goldie had ran across her in one of the happening spots of the town. She walked over near the jukebox where he was standing and extended her hand in his direction. Goldie smiled as he accepted her hand. She returned his smile. "I'm Kathy. I was just sitting at the bar checking you out. I wondered if you remembered me." Goldie kissed her on the hand. "Of course I remember you. How could I forget you?" She blushed as the recording zoomed by the Commodores began to permeate the club. A staring match ensued. He pulled her close to him. She had no idea that she was dealing with a much more confident, a much more sophisticated, a much more refined and defined Goldie. They have been inseparable ever since. Goldie asked, "What's up, baby?" as he closed the door to her place behind himself. Kathy just sat there, shaking her head from side to side. Goldie took that as nothing's happening, but in reality, he knew what it was. He hadn't been by to see her in a week, and 3 days prior, they were supposed to have a nice little quiet dinner and spend some quality time together. Now, Kathy was Goldie's pickup lady. She made rounds and picked up his paper, money, in parentheses, from people that worked for him. He didn't have any problem when it came down to him getting his paper. If it was out there, she was going to get it. He knew the significance of having a sharp chick that could get out there among men and get that paper. He also knew that whenever someone was on top, that there was always someone out there trying to gain what they had, trying to take that power. So he would give it to them, power, in parentheses. They never realized that it wasn't available to them based on the way that he put it out there. He knew that the workers had to believe that if they wanted to make points and or be treated like an equal, that they had to think that paying him was the most essential thing in the world. And believe me, Kathy was a real charmer. Goldie held his arm out in her direction and gestured her over to him. She was slow moving, but she got there. She walked into his arms and immediately began to sob. She said, "Goldie, I was worried about you." He backed up out of the embrace, looked down into her eyes and replied, "Look at you, chump, with all that water on your face." He began to kiss her tears. Kathy asked, "How have you been?" He replied, "How do I look?" "Well, where have you been?" Goldie smiled. Now that's a long story. She smiled, and right then he knew that he had her. He said, "Hey girl, turn around and let me look at you." Now Kathy's body was flawless, and the teddy that she wore didn't leave any wonder to the imagination. Goldie wanted to take her in his arms and make deep, passionate love to her. However, he was already behind schedule. He explained that he had a few rounds to make and that he was just wanted to touch base with her and that he would stop by later. Kathy asked, "Goldie, what about the money?" He held his hands out at his side and gestured. "What about the money? It isn't going anywhere, is it?" She replied, "Well, no." He kissed her on the mouth and said, "All right, baby, I'll see you a little later on, okay?" Kathy smiled and replied, "Okay." As Goldie made his way back to his car, he realized that Kathy was ready, overdue, and very deserving. He jumped back into his car and asked Smooth, "Are you ready?" Smooth looked over at him and replied, "I'm just sitting here digging some of your tunes, man." "Well, look here, man. I'm going to drop you off and get things in motion." He handed Smooth $100 bill and said, "Buy your girl something nice." "Is that cool, or do you need a little more bread?" "Nah, Goldie, that's cool, and thanks." Again, Smooth wanted to ask Goldie about working the block, but he dare not ask, especially after the lecture that he received from Goldie. They were approaching the block where Goldie had picked Smooth up from, and he pulled the car over to the side of the road and dropped him off. Smooth asked, "When?" Goldie looked over at him and smiled, and then he extended his hand and replied, "Very soon, my friend, very soon." As Goldie pulled his ride away from the curb, he knew that it wouldn't be long before he would put his plan into effect. He would put himself on top of the game by way of everything that he knew about the game, and in success, he planned to walk away from it.